Welcome back. With no Speaker of the House for more than 18 days, a government shutdown looming, and an aid package for Israel stalled, Republican divisions have broken out into the open in angry reclamations and even death threats. On Friday, House Republicans dropped hard-right Republican Congressman Jim Jordan as their candidate for Speaker after he failed for the third time to get the necessary votes, leaving Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries as the candidate with the most votes, but short of a majority. Nearly 10 House Republicans are now exploring bids for Speaker. Joining me now is the man whose name is still on the sign above the Speaker's office, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Mr. Speaker, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for being here. Look, as we have said, the House of Representatives has been without a Speaker for nearly 3 weeks now. What do you say to Americans who look at this chaos and believe it's a sign that Republicans cannot govern?
Well, it's embarrassing, and you've got to understand why we are here. 8 Republicans, led by Gates, have created this chaos by joining every single Democrat in voting to shut down one branch of government. Look, I would do the exact same thing again. Could you imagine if we were having this discussion right now with the American government shut down, with our troops in the Middle East, wondering when they'll ever get paid again? Keeping the government open was the right decision to make, and I'd make it again each and every day. Now, the 2 men, Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan, they could have done the job as Speaker. Unfortunately, the chaos has continued. We need to solve this problem. We got a wide open southern border. We got crushing inflation. We got war in the Middle East. This is not a moment in time to play around with learning on the job. We need someone who understands how to do this job. I believe Tom Emmer, our whip, he's been in the room with all of our successes, from our bills to secure the border, from Parents' Bill of Rights, from cutting $2 trillion, getting work requirements. He knows how to do the job across the street at the same time, helping us win the majority. He sets himself head and shoulders above all those others who want to run. We need to get him elected this week and move on and bring this not just party together, but focus on what this country needs most.
We're going to delve into Tom Emmer in just a moment. But first, I want to ask you, I hear you invoking Democrats. I understand why. The reality, though, is, as you know, Republicans control the House. Does this not come down to Matt Gaetz ultimately moving to oust you? And therefore, do you bear some responsibility for this, Mr. Speaker, for agreeing to give him the deal in the first place to be able to remove you with just 1 vote?
Well, that deal has been with every speaker in the House. The only person who had changed it is Nancy Pelosi. But no other party. I had the power to make this motion against Nancy Pelosi, but I never did because I believed in the institution of the House. All the other Democrat leaders believed they never should have be able to raise this issue. Remember, as we go forward in the next decade, if the majority changes, no one's going to have a big majority. So what Hakeem Jeffries has just done, changed the institution itself to say it's okay to always make a motion to try to shut down one branch of government.
But Mr. Speaker, just to be clear,
what Matt Gaetz has done here, think about this. He has chosen with no plan, concerned about an ethics complaint that was registered against him in the last Congress, to try to go and move and shut it down. This is a wrong approach. It's brought chaos. The Democrats went along with it, and they have blame too. But I would sit back. I'll take whatever blame needed. But if the blame is on me for keeping government open and voting for the troops, I would do that again tomorrow.
But just very quickly, just to put a fine point on it, before we get to Tom Emmer, do you regret giving Matt Gaetz that power over you?
You don't have that choice. You have 218 votes to pass a rule. No Democrat would vote. They all voted just like they did to shut this, to throw me out. They all voted against that rule as well. So they wouldn't help at that time.
All right.
So I believed moving forward is the best, like every other speaker has had.
Let's talk about Tom Emmer. Obviously, you had Steve Scalise, you had Jim Jordan, who couldn't get enough votes. Do you think Tom Emmer will actually be able to get enough votes to be Speaker? Because all of my reporting suggests it's an uphill battle.
I do. I believe it's going to be an uphill battle, but if you simply look at what's the chaos right now, a wide open southern border, I'm concerned about a cell sitting inside America today. We just caught 18 people just last month on the FBI terrorist watch list coming across our border. More than 160 have done it this year, a record breaking. When we're looking around the Middle East and the uprisings popping up around Europe and others, they could be sleeper cells right now in America, but this administration has done nothing to change what's happening on the southern border. We got government funding where our troops wouldn't be paid sitting here in a month. Tom Emmer has been a part of our successes from not just winning the majority, but being in the room to help us pass a border security bill, to make us energy independent, Parents' Bill of Rights, to stand up when the Democrats wanted to defund the police and decriminalize so many of those laws. And he has been successful.
Yeah.
This is not a time for a learning experience as Speaker. Tom would be able to walk into the job and do it on day.
But, Mr. Speaker, you're talking about all of the urgent needs, all of the pressure, including the war in Israel. Why isn't that enough to have already gotten a speaker in place holding the gavel? Why should it be any different now with Tom Emmer? You said the same thing about Jim Jordan last week.
Well, I think why wouldn't it be the case that I'd still be in the job? Unfortunately, we have 8 people led by Gates that put something different in their belief. I don't know why they would follow Gates about his ethics complaint. I don't know what's in it. I legally can't be involved in it. It must be rather serious to put this much jeopardy into this nation. I would have hoped that everyone would come together with their put the country before the politics and actually solve this. Steve Scalise would have done an excellent job. I supported him. Jim Jordan would have. I just know this is not a time to play games. This is embarrassing for the Republican Party. It's embarrassing for the nation, and we need to look at one another and solve the problem.
Mr. Speaker, just to put a very fine point on it, if there is not a speaker, if Emmer cannot get the votes, would you rule out running for speaker again to get your old job back?
Look, I don't need the title. I'm going to help in any way I can.
I don't hear you ruling it out, Mr. Speaker. Would you rule it out?
Look, I know you have your job. I'm supporting Tom Emmer, but I'm going to tell you, I'm still a member of Congress, and I'm going to lead in any capacity I can help to protect America. I'm going to work to secure our border. I'm going to work to stop the inflation. I'm going to make sure war does not break out in Israel and that Israel has every resource they need to defend themselves. But most importantly, I'm going to press this administration. We have to destroy Hamas, but you cannot do it without confronting Iran. They need to change their policies. Iran only had $4 billion in the foreign exchange when they took office. They now have $70 billion. Iran only produced 400,000 barrels of oil a day when Biden took office. They now produce 3 million. They're getting billions of dollars to fund terrorism around the world, and you cannot stop Hamas. You cannot get the American hostages back without confronting Iran.
Okay.
And they cannot make the same mistake they did in Afghanistan. We have to be very clear. Every single American has to come home. No one will be left behind. And I can do that as a congressman. I can do that as a citizen. And I will do it and stand up for the American people.
And, Mr. Speaker, just to be very clear, we didn't hear you rule out potentially putting your name back in if there's no speaker. But let me move on. Look, to your point, to the urgent need, we just heard Secretary Blinken make the same exact case. So once there's a speaker back in place, will you move immediately on the request by President Biden, which includes linking aid to Israel and Ukraine?
Look, we will look at exactly what they put up. We are a different branch of government. We'll make sure there's no bloating in here. But the one thing this administration has to know from the day I became Speaker, they have to stop ignoring the southern border. Israel should have their money right now. They are at the brink of war. There are more Americans dying on our southern border than they are in Ukraine. Ukraine has $9 billion right now. So let's sit down and let's look exactly what weaponry they need. Israel, let's not ditter around.
But Mr. Speaker, 31
let's
Americans
say that tomorrow, and then let's make sure.
Yeah, but 31 Americans just lost their lives.
Let's make sure our southern border is
Israel.
secure.
Yeah, but 31 Americans just
That's right.
lost their lives in Israel. That is not something that we have seen happen at the southern border, Mr. Speaker. But just to be very clear, would you support linking aid to Ukraine to Israel? Would you support linking aid to Ukraine to aid for Israel?
No, because I would not want to delay any aid for Israel. I would have already sent aid to Israel. If I was still Speaker today, I would have done a number of things. We wouldn't even be talking about it today. First and foremost, I would have made sure that no longer are we paying for American American hostages, that there would be consequences for any American and no one's going to get left behind, I would have already sent the aid to Israel. I would have stood up to the anti-Semitism that's coming across the aisle, the lies that are being said by the Democrats where Hakeem just says there's no statement. I would have made sure that we had looked at our own border, that we don't have any sleeping cells here, that we would actually stop these terrorists coming across our own border. And I would have made sure from that perspective going forward that Israel had every sophisticated weapon they needed to defend themselves. So no, then we would have brought up Ukraine aid at the same time we were talking about our own southern border, and we would have been able to get the job done.
As you know, former President Trump has inserted himself at various moments, both in the speaker race, endorsing Jim Jordan, now not endorsing Tom Emmer, also calling for the government to shut down. Do you think former President Trump has made it more difficult for Republicans to govern in the House?
Look, no, I think the individuals themselves can make their decisions. Tom Emmer has the ability and shown the ability. Not only can he pass the very difficult bills, he can help win the majority. He is the best person for the job. I've watched what we've been able to do just in these 9 months. Think about this. We have passed a bill that makes us energy independent. We have passed the most conservative border security bill that would secure our border. We have passed the Parents' Bill of Rights. We have cut $2 trillion of wasteful spending. We have brought in work requirements at the same time. We were passing appropriation bills, some that have never been passed by Republicans in 16 years. Unfortunately, 8 Republicans led by Gates have brought us this chaos.
Mr. Speaker,
we need to make sure that we make that correction and move forward.
We only have a few seconds left here. My question was about former President Trump. Let me just ask you this quite simply. Why haven't you endorsed him yet?
Well, the campaign is still going. There's a very good chance I would endorse
He's the clear front runner. He's the clear front runner. What are you waiting for?
Well, I believe... Well, you know what? Because I've got a southern border wide open. I got war in the Middle East. I got things I'm focused on right now. I believe President Trump will be our nominee, and I believe President Trump will get reelected.
Are you still a MAGA Republican, Mr. Speaker?
He has brought it chaos. You know what? I am a conservative Republican from the beginning to the end, and that's what I've always been. You can try to phrase different names to people, but I'm proud of who I am.
All right. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, thank you. We know you have a busy week ahead. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.